Good afternoon and welcome everybody to MOS Live today. Today we're talking with Museum of Science Education about citizen science and how you can get involved. My name is Katie, my pronouns are she, hers, and I'll be keeping an eye out for all of your questions during this webinar today. If you're watching on Facebook, please know that to ask questions, you'll have to click the Zoom link in the caption of this video. On Zoom, just press the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So at this point, I'd like to invite our presenter to introduce themselves and we'll get started.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I am an educator at the museum and my pronouns are she and hers. And I'm going to talk to you today all about citizen science. So this is going to be more a webinar about what we're doing here at the Museum of Science, some things that you guys can do at home, and feel free to ask questions like Katie said in the Q&A button bar. But first, I'm going to launch this poll because I want to understand a little bit more about why you are all here attending this webinar today. So if you're on Zoom, it should pop up on your screen and feel free to vote about a reason why you're attending this webinar today so I can try to tailor some of the things I say about why you're here. So I'll just leave this up for a little bit and I will let all of you vote. Looks like we have about 60% of the people already voted. Awesome, so this looks great. I'll wait one more second. All right, let me show you the results. Looks like most people are here to learn all about citizen science, which is amazing, and to learn a little bit how to use citizen science apps. So I'm going to go into depth on how to use one of the apps, but feel free to ask questions at the end or during if you have any more questions about citizen science and using the app. Okay, so let's get started. So what is citizen science? So this month is Citizen Science Month, April 2020, and it's a month dedicated to learning all about what citizen science is and learning about different things that you can do and be involved in citizen science. So what is citizen science? Citizen science is collaborative research done by everyday people anytime, anywhere to help answer questions that scientists can't answer alone. So basically what that means is that it's taking community members together to do science, to learn about science, to answer some sort of question. It can be a specific question, but a lot of times it's more of a broad question or a broad thing about science that we just need a lot of data for. So today I'm going to be talking to you about climate science and about more biodiversity. So these two apps that I'll be talking about are more of a general idea of citizen science versus answering a specific question, but from that, scientists can then pull that data and then start answering questions that maybe they didn't even know existed to begin with. So it's really just about helping scientists collect data and also being involved in science yourself and learning yourself. So who can participate? Anyone can participate in citizen science. So you can participate online, outside, in your house, as an individual, as part of a family, as part of a group. Today, I'm mainly going to be talking about projects that are online or in your house / outside, because I really want to make sure that we're doing individual projects that are following our social distancing guidelines. I want to make sure that we are being safe and being smart, but still being able to contribute to scientific research and to science. So anyone can participate. You can participate as your family, as an individual. You can participate if you are a kid as well, and I'll talk a little bit more on how to safely participate as someone who's under 12 when it comes to these online projects. So SciStarter is a really, really great place to either start or, if you know a lot about citizen science, to go to. So SciStarter.org, it is a website that hosts thousands of citizen science projects. So you can see here on the screen that it says, find a project. You can search by keyword about anything that you're interested in. So as I mentioned today, I'm going to be talking more about climate citizen science projects, but they are really anything. You can see here in the keyword, for examples, it says weather or dog. This guy here is taking some water samples. There are citizen science projects about Alzheimer's research, about cats, about fish counting. Really anything you can think of, there's probably a project for it. So after this, or right now, whatever you want, go to SciStarter.org and you can start searching for some projects that you can participate in. And it's free to create a username and log in. You just sign up for it and it's completely free. And at this top, you see everything that they offer. So they have a bunch of projects. They have a list of tools. The projects I'm going to be talking about today, you don't need any tools. But if you are doing, for example, you really like water sampling, there's going to be some ideas on where to get a water sampling kits and things like that. Events like this one right now, and a blog and podcasts. So it's a really great place to just start to learn about citizen science and to find a project that fits you. So what are we doing at the Museum of Science? So we have a project with SciStarter and a lot of other partners funded by NOAA, which is the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association. And it's called Citizen Science, Civics, and Resilient Communities. That's a really long name. You don't need to remember that. What it is, it's essentially connecting citizen science projects to climate hazards. So the climate hazards that we were really focused on were extreme heat and sea level rise. So we wanted to find awesome citizen science projects that connected to those to not only gather data about extreme heat, for example, but to get citizen science and community members involved with learning about extreme heat and collecting data about it. And hopefully also having some sort of civic change. So making sure our data goes toward some sort of policy change. So I'm going to use the example of extreme heat and what we did last summer to involve citizen scientists into our project. So our project was called Wicked Hot Boston. It was a project that we did last year in 2019, and it was all about connecting citizen science project to the hazard of extreme heat. So in order to do this, we implemented a project about mapping the urban heat island. So the urban heat island effect is when cities are a lot hotter than the surrounding area. And before, city planners in Boston, Cambridge, and Brookline were using these heat maps that were generated from satellite pictures and giving surface temperatures. So the temperature of a sidewalk or a driveway or the concrete. And those maps basically show that the entire greater Boston region was really hot, upwards of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And although it's helpful to know that Boston is hotter, city planners really wanted to know where in Boston, where in Cambridge, where in Brookline is it the hottest? Because when you're talking about city planning, you really need to do it more on the neighborhood level. Where are you going to start? Where can we plant those trees? Where can we implement our policies where it's going to matter the most? So to do that, we used these sensors that you can see here on the screen. These are heat sensors. They are developed by Kappa Strategies, Science Museum Virginia, and Portland State University. And in these heat sensors, they have a temperature sensor, a humidity sensor, and a GPS. And what it does is it collects data about the actual air temperature around you. So it's the temperature that you feel, that you breathe in, that you experience during a heat wave. So in order to get the data that we needed to have 10 of these sensors attached to cars and drive them around Boston, Cambridge, and Brookline. So we needed at least 10 people to drive. We needed 10 people to help the driver navigate, because if you've ever driven through Boston, it's not that fun. And we only were a team of 5 at the time. So in order to do this and collect this data, it was really important to have citizen scientists help us with this, because they're the people that live in Boston, that live in Cambridge. They know the roads, they know their neighborhoods, and now they contributed to creating this data and this map that you see, that city planners are going to use to make a difference in their own communities. So we actually ended up getting over 50 citizen scientists to help us collect this data. And that was just so powerful, because they were the ones who lived there, and they now created a map that can be used by city planners to make a difference in their own communities. And this was shown by how much the media really appreciated this work and really loved it. So here is a story from Icy Change. NBC 10 Boston picked it up twice, which is really cool. And here's a article from climate.gov from NOAA. So it just really shows that community input and community data is really important, and it's going to drive policy for the future. It's already, this map has already been shown in the Climate Ready Boston report, and it will be used in future things when it comes to planning for extreme heat. So that's one example of something that the Museum of Science did last summer, but now I want to jump into more of what you guys can do right now. So how can you be involved in citizen science? So on top of the urban heat island mapping that we did last summer, we also had this project called Icy Change, and this is a citizen science platform that is all about documenting and learning from the changing environment. So as I was mentioning heat, those were great maps, right? That shows you how hot certain areas are, certain neighborhoods are. But when it comes to weather, and especially heat, it's more about how you feel, how you're reacting to that. And so Icy Change gives you the opportunity to do that. It allows you to show your voice and also have more hard data to back that up. So when you're posting to Icy Change, it's kind of like, we like to call it Instagram for climate change in a way. You're basically posting a picture or posting a comment about how you're feeling about the weather that day or what you're seeing. And what's really important about this app is that, as I mentioned, you live in your house, in your apartment. You look at the weather outside every single day. You know best what's happening when it comes to weather and climate. And so this is just a way that you can document that and have it all in one place so that your data is there to use. And each post is actually synced with weather and climate data. So here are some examples of posts that are from Icy Change. So you can see you can post about any sort of weather. Here you can see it says investigating. So there are these things called investigations, which basically just you put your post into a little bucket. So if you're posting about extreme heat, you'll investigate about extreme heat. If you are posting about snow, then you'll post into something about snow. And that's just so that all of the weather posts of the same weather are kind of all together and you can search. Another really cool thing about Icy Change, and something that when you're signing up for, make sure that you put your location services on, because it's really important to show where you are. This is a worldwide app, so it's really awesome to see what's happening around the world, but it's more awesome to see what's happening in your own community. So it's a way that you can have a community conversation, meet people that are around you, and have that dialogue and conversation about things that are happening in your own neighborhoods. When you make a post, it may look like it's very specific, but your specific location will never be shared. So as you see on these public posts, it says just Brookline, Mass. So it's just gonna give you the town that you're in. They'll never share your specific location data if you're worried about that. And also when you share your location, it's gonna grab from the nearest weather station. So this weather, this temperature that you see was automatically grabbed. So you don't have to go find what the weather is, search it, look it up. It's going to automatically sync that for you. So you'll always have that on your post. And I mentioned briefly in the beginning that if you are a teacher or a parent with kids that are under 12, you need to be more careful when it comes to posting things on online platforms, because this is, in a way, a social media platform, and so you should treat it as you would any other platform. So one thing that you can do, as you see here, is that a teacher of a middle school actually created an account for the entire middle school, and the students can post to it, but their names and are not exposed. So it's just a one shared account. So if you're a parent, you can put it under your name or maybe the family name. It doesn't have to be specific. So that's just one way that as a teacher, you can still have them be using these online platforms, but making sure that you're keeping the identity safe of the kids that you're working with. And one awesome thing about Icy Change, these are my posts and something that I discovered. I've now been using the app for over a year. So now I'm starting to see what I was posting last year. And this is so cool to me because even in my head, I felt like last year was colder, but I didn't really have any evidence for that. I didn't really know. And now I can actually look back at my posts and not only look at pictures, but I can see how I was feeling. So the post on the left is from 2019 and on the right is from 2020, both in January. You can see that the temperatures were actually pretty similar, but there is one major difference. Last year, the Charles River actually froze over, and this year it never fully froze. So it was really cool for me to see that actual data in front of me that I took to show that how the river was freezing or wasn't freezing. And as I keep doing this, I can collect a huge data set about this, and then that can be really useful to someone who's trying to study how warm or cold the winters are in Boston, or maybe very specific about the Charles. So I'm collecting this data not only for me, but maybe for someone who could use it in the future. So to sign up for Icy Change, it is a free platform. So you can sign up online. It's in the App Store or Google Play. When you sign up, make sure you use the same email that you would use to sign up for that original SciStarter account. And that's because when you look at SciStarter, there's a dashboard, and the dashboard will host all of your citizen science projects that you do. So it's basically just a nice little way that you can organize yourself and see everything that you're doing and contributing to. Let's see, Katie, do you have any questions about Icy Change or anything before I move on to iNaturalist?
No Icy Change or citizen science questions yet, Sarah. Thanks.
Cool, awesome. Well, don't forget, you can ask them in the Q&A bar on Zoom. Okay, so the next project I'm going to talk about is iNaturalist. This is a project that is all about biodiversity and nature. So it is an online social network. It is an app or a website. You can do either or both. And the primary goal is to connect people to nature. But what's also really cool about this app is that it's generating all of this amazing biodiversity data from all over the world. So this is a worldwide app, and you basically just take pictures of biodiversity, whether it be trees or animals or birds or mammals or fungi, any sort of biodiversity. You take a picture of it and you share it to this platform. And it's really cool not only to discover nature for yourself, but also that data can then be used by scientists all over the world studying anything that they need this data for. So how it works is you take a picture, you record your observation, you share it out to iNaturalist, and then you discuss your findings. And I'm going to talk about all of these steps as we move forward. So the first thing you need to do is make an iNaturalist account. Again, it is free. Make sure you're only posting your personal observations, so pictures that you took yourself versus other people. It is important to share where you saw it. There are ways to kind of alter your location so it's a bigger area if you don't want it to be a very specific location. But when you're talking about wild biodiversity, it is important to say where you saw it, since especially for plants or migratory animals, it might be really important when it comes to exactly where you saw it. Take a picture of what you saw and when you saw it. So a really cool thing about iNaturalist and Icy Change as well is you can just take pictures on an actual camera if you want, or on your cell phone, and then you can upload them later. So when you upload things later, you just need to make sure that you are changing your location and date and time, because a lot of times I know on my iPhone, it automatically inputs that info and it may not be correct. So just when you upload anything, make sure that you're doing the correct date, time, and location. And then post evidence of what you saw, so some sort of picture or sound. So iNaturalist is the platform that you use to record biodiversity. And in order to, and something called a BioBlitz is where you have this brief intensive survey of biodiversity over a set area and time. So basically, it's a fun way to get people engaged with nature over this short 4-day period, but it eventually gets more and more people involved with doing this awesome work. So the City Nature Challenge is a way that people in cities were able to connect with nature over this 4-day BioBlitz. So it started in 2016 between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and they had this challenge to see who can record the most amount of posts, who can find the most biodiversity in their city, and who can observe and identify the most amount of species. It was so popular in 2017, 16 cities, including Boston, joined. And then the next year, 2018, it became worldwide. Last year, there was over 160 cities that were a part of this. And then in this year, there's over 200 cities worldwide. This year, it's going to be a little bit different. It is not quite the City Nature Challenge. It is more the City Nature Celebration. So this year we are more celebrating the nature around us, and we are making sure that we are observing biodiversity that is in our normal areas that we live. So making sure we're staying to our house, our backyard, our neighborhoods, the sidewalks we normally walk, just making sure we're not going out of our way to observe biodiversity, and we're keeping those social and physical distancing rules in mind. And we are just really embracing the nature that's around us right now. So this is just an awesome way to get out of your house or out of your apartment and search for the nature around you. And you would be really surprised what's just directly around you. I went out on Saturday just for a half an hour, and I took my phone and I took a ton of pictures, and I found over 10 things within 20 minutes. And honestly, I just kind of looked at my backyard and I was like, oh, there's grass and trees. But I found, you know, a robin, I found a bunny, I found a land snail. I didn't even know I had land snails behind my yard. So it's just a really great way to get out there. So this just explains more about the City Nature Challenge. It's just a great way to not only increase the amount of people observing, but just connect yourself to nature. And what's really awesome is that every year you see more and more people are starting to observe. So this is number of observations per week, and you can see the big increase during every City Nature Challenge. And that's really cool, but you can also see that after the City Nature Challenge, the number of observations per week are much higher as well. So it just gets people really involved with learning about nature. And it's great because these observations, like I said, are used by scientists who study these things every single day. So how does it work? We are currently in this year's City Nature Challenge. So today is April 27th. It is the last day for observation. So after this, feel free to go out and take some pictures, observe plants, animals, fungi, anything you see, and share it out. And then over the next 4 days is when we will be doing the identification phase. So I'm going to talk about these 2 phases, and we will move forward from there. So this is the City Nature Challenge Boston area. So as I said, there are over 200 cities worldwide, and so those cities have some boundaries. This is our Boston area. It is between the 495 belt, the Cape, and the islands, and Stellwagen Bank. So if you live within that geofence, then anything you post to iNaturalist will automatically be taken in toward the City Nature Challenge. You don't really have to do anything to make your posts count toward it. Those are just the posts they're counting. And unfortunately, I am not within that geofence, but I am still posting because I'm still wanting to increase the amount of observations and just be part of it. So if you're not within this area, you can still participate and still post to iNaturalist. And like I said, this year is more of a celebration, so they won't name a winner this year. However, they still have some goals they want to reach. They still want to see if people are, observing certain things and identifying certain animals. At the bottom here, you can see all of the organizations that organized the City Nature Challenge. So these are all the partners for the Boston area, and we are really excited to be someone who's collaborating this year to getting the word out about this. So I'm going to now talk about how you make an observation for iNaturalist. So these are screenshots from an iPhone. You can upload things online as well. It's a little bit different, and it's actually a little bit easier depending on how you look at it. I use my phone for the most part, but if you have a ton of pictures, you can download everything to your computer and kind of more like photo dump it into the online platform. I believe an Android looks a little bit different than this as well, but the steps are the same. So what you do is you press observe at that bottom menu, and then you either take a picture right then using that green button, or you upload a picture from your camera roll. I found it easiest to go out and just take a bunch of pictures on my iPhone and then upload them later when I have Wi-Fi. Things just move faster, and you can kind of sit there and put everything up at one time versus doing it in the field, but it's up to you how you want to do it. So once you pick your picture, you press next. You can keep adding pictures, so feel free to take multiple angles, especially if it's a plant. Make sure to get the petals, the stem, the grass, or wherever it is. Make sure to get all those angles. It really helps when it comes to identifying. And then at the bottom here, you see that you change or have your date and location. So depending on, like I said, when you upload things later, it might automatically grab your date and location. Make sure to change that so that it matches where you actually took that picture. And then you can view suggestions on what do you see. So there are a lot of options when it comes to this. You can look up species by name. So if you absolutely know what it is, you can look it up and you can identify it right then and there. Or you can use this AI. So iNaturalist has been gathering data for years, and they have this platform that's starting to help identify certain species. So here you can see that from this picture, they said it's visually similar to a sea otter. It's also visually similar to a California sea lion. So if you know what it is, you can click it, and that will help you identify the animal. But if you don't know what it is, it's actually better to even either leave it blank or to look up just the general genus or the general order of what you think it may be. So for example, I know nothing about land plants. I just never really took land botany. So whenever I'm observing trees, I usually leave it blank because even if it says it's visually similar, I have no idea if it actually is that species. So you can leave it blank, and I'll explain the identification part next. But that's better, so you're not confusing the AI and you're not confusing people who are looking at it. But if you know what it is, then definitely identify it. Or you can just do a general order or genus. So for example, the land snail, I knew it was a land snail, but I had no idea the species. So I typed in, I looked up species by name, I looked up land snail, and it gave me an order, and it allowed me to click the general order, and then people will help me identify it down to the species level. So once you do that, you press share, and then it's out into the iNaturalist community. Some tips and tricks when you're observing. Make sure it's a wild organism. This is actually really important. They're super interested in what's wild. So not if the tree is planted by you or by someone else, not things that are planted, or animals like dogs or things that you have in your house. Make sure it's wild to the environment that you're in. Make sure you have one focal species. So if you're taking a bunch of pictures, making sure that you're focused in on one thing, and then uploading different posts for different species. Make sure your photo is clear and in focus. It's a lot easier now that camera phones on your cell phones are so much better. And then, like I said, if you know it, name it. If you don't know it, then try to get it to some sort of level, or just leave it blank. And you can leave it blank because there's the second part. This is called the identification part. And this is the part that's going to be happening over the next 4 days of the City Nature Challenge. So here, this is kind of what it looks like when you upload an observation. You have these suggested IDs. So people who are on iNaturalist can go and look at your posts, and they can help you to identify what they see. So they can either agree with you, they can suggest a new ID, or if you left it blank, they can suggest an ID in general. And then the community can kind of go back and forth and discuss what they think that it is. And if more than 2 people agree, or 2/3 of people agree, it becomes research grade. So basically what this means is that there is a consensus. The iNaturalist community believes that it is this species, and a lot of people are agreeing about it. And it's important to get up to research grade because that's the data that the scientists will grab and use. So today, go out and observe, and then over the next 4 days, you can go help identify. So I mentioned I know nothing about land plants, so I leave those blank, but I know a lot about marine animals. So I can search marine animals that I know I can help identify on iNaturalist and go help out my iNaturalist community, whilst other people are helping me identify the tree that I found. So you can help other people help you, and it creates this community about learning about biodiversity. For example, no one's identified my land snail yet, so I don't know what it is. But I also found a robin, and I knew that it was a robin, but then someone helped me say that, yes, it was this eastern robin. So it was really cool to see, and now I know, I look out my backyard and I know the exact genus and species of the animal that I helped to observe. So I talked a lot during this webinar. This is a place where you can go to learn about everything I talked about. So SciStarter.org/NOAA-Museum of Science. This is where you're going to find everything that we're focusing on at Museum of Science. You can see at the top here, you can learn more about our extreme heat project, and then you can learn more about our sea level rise project. I didn't talk about it today, but we use an app called My Coast, and it's all about investigating coastal resilience and sea level rise and flooding. So you can learn more about it here. You can learn how to use iNaturalist and Icy Change, and just learn more about citizen science in general. If you scroll down on the website, there are awesome videos about what citizen science is. So Katie, are there any questions?
Yes, we have 2. So we have a iNaturalist specific question. Can you talk about ways that scientists use the observations people contribute through iNaturalist?
Yes, so I am not an expert, but you can definitely look up, if you go to iNaturalist online, or Zoo New England is actually who's hosting the Boston City Nature Challenge page, you can find more examples. but I do know one example. I don't remember the specific species, but it was a species of bird, and so many people were starting to observe it at different times of the year in different places. And scientists who was looking at this data noticed that people were observing this bird in this area, and they thought it was really weird. So they started to collect the data over the years and what has been done in the past, and actually discover that the species of bird was migrating earlier than it was in the past. So through iNaturalist data, they were actually able to determine different migration patterns of one specific species. So that's just one example. There are hundreds, and it's just really cool that citizen collected data was then used to learn something new about a species. Yeah, I think you can find that just on the iNaturalist page. That will lead you to a lot of the different papers that have been published from the data. And all of the research grade data goes straight into this. It's kind of like a nature encyclopedia where scientists can grab the data from.
Great, thank you. We have another question about other citizen science projects. Do you know of any that relate more to urban issues, noise levels, smog, etc.?
I can't think of any at the top of my head. I do know that there is an air quality project. You use an air quality sensor and you record what you find from your sensor. That project is on SciStarter, so you can look it up. Just search air quality. It should pop up for you. And yes, I know that there's a lot of other projects. I know specifically in Boston, there are a lot of noise studies happening, so feel free to search for those projects. I know they exist. So yeah, there are a lot of urban projects, and I guess I didn't really mention, on SciStarter, you can also change your location to be very specific. So if you want to find projects that are happening specifically in one area of Boston, you can search projects by location and then find those projects specifically.
Thank you. And we have another question that I think will lead us to talking about SciStarter. This person started a program called Middle Schoolers for Change. What other projects or websites could be appropriate for middle school age?
Well, SciStarter is definitely a place to go when it comes to middle school projects. I can't really think of anything.
I think through SciStarter, you can filter like different, I don't know if it's ages or some kind of category.
I think it's, yeah, either age or grade. You're right. You can filter it based on that. Yeah, so that might be a really great tool to use. Filter it by the ages or the grades, and it will pop up with fun projects. Girl Scouts actually have a lot of citizen science projects, so if you search that, they're usually tailored around middle school age. You can find the projects that Girl Scouts do and see if that's any interest to you as well.
Thank you. We have one last question that I think will also help us say goodbye. Where can folks watch this later so that they remember what to do?
Awesome. So we are working on that right now. It is being broadcasted to Facebook right now, so it will live on the Museum of Science's Facebook page for right now. In the future, it will probably go up on our Museum of Science website, which we'll link you to at the end. And then it will probably also be posted to this SciStarter page that is up as well. So hopefully it will be in a lot of places. For right now, you can find it in the Facebook video archives and it should live there. But here is the link for the rest of our stuff. And I just want to thank you all for being, for coming to this webinar and participating. And it's been really fun. So I hope you learned something, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone. To repeat, to check out more programs, visit the website mos.org/mosathome, or follow us on social media. And as Sarah mentioned, you can find some of our older programs there as well. If you enjoyed today's presentation, please visit www.mos.org/Science Matters to support MOS at home. That's www.mos.org/Science Matters. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.